Hello world, welcome back to building a roguelike in C. Just my headphones here, too loud in my own ears. Alright, so recap what we did yesterday. We worked on building out our entity component system to represent our world, and we implemented several initial components. Here, so we defined several components in an enum, such as position, visibility, physicality, health, and movement, and then we went ahead and we started defining those components. So we took the first three, position, visibility, and physical, built out the data structures that are going to represent those components, and then we were able to test out, make sure that those components were working properly in our system. Let me fire up a console. Put that on screen for you so you can see that. Alright, so we've got our console here, and this is our current state. Super exciting. We've got a black screen that has our little @ avatar. That's our little player, and we got moving around the screen. And then we added another game object to represent a wall, our hash mark here for a wall, and then we gave it some physical characteristics and said that it can't walk through it. So if he comes along here and hits the wall, he can't go through it. So that kind of proved out our initial concept for our entity component system. So tonight, I think I've got some notes here. Maybe. So tonight, there were a couple things in building out the entity component system that, as I went through, they just kind of tasted bad. And I was like, all right, I'll come back to it, and they're not sitting well with me, so I just want to fix up a couple things before we keep going. The first of which is, right now we're wasting the 0th spot in our different entity and component arrays. So right now we've set maximum game objects to 1,000, and basically our system right now says that for the game object in position N, let's say the position 5, the position component of that object, if it exists, is also in slot 5 here of this array, and likewise for the visibility component and the physical component. So we can kind of scan across those, but when we're creating a game object, I say we're testing the ID explicitly against 0, so we're leaving that first slot unused, which isn't, it's not the unused space that is bothering me as much as it is the weird loops that we have to do. So like over here, when we're rendering a screen, we have to go from 1 to maximum, as opposed to starting at 0, and that's just rife with error. I already tripped over that once, and I really don't want to do it again, so let's clean that up. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to define a function that will initialize our world state, which will clean up the issue of not being able to use the 0th slot, but it will also come in handy later when we re-implement how we're handling this memory, because right now we're not handling it very efficiently, and I have ideas for how we're going to do that, but right now I want to get the simple system working. However, by abstracting the world state initialization behind a function, when it comes time to refactor that, we can continue to use that function and the interface that we're defining for it without breaking any of the code that's going to call that function. So and let's call it world state init. And basically all that we're going to do in this, let's add the calling code before we go ahead and implement the method. So this is our main function. We're setting up our SDL environment and our console treatment of that environment. And then right here we're just spinning up a couple game objects before we go into our main game loop. So before we can touch any game objects, we need to initialize our game state. So this would be a good place to maybe we call it game objects. Game. Let's do world state in it. So I can see us having some world state functions. Alright, so basically any point after this function is run, have initialized game objects, game object data structures, component data structures that we can then use. So over here we are already allocating the memory for the different world state objects that we need. But what I'd like to do is you can't, in structs you can't default these to a value. So what we're going to do is we're going to set some default values that make sense to our game. So we're going to say that, and let's even define call it unused. We'll set unused to the value -1. So all of our arrays start at index 0. -1 is not a valid value for an index in the array. So all we're going to do here is we're going to loop through all of our objects and components, and since they're all defined to be max go in size, we can just loop. We can just have one loop for now. And so what we'll do is set game objects xi. And each game object really just has an ID and an array of components. The component array is already initialized satisfactorily. I don't think that we need... I think we're actually setting it... Okay, so we're initializing, when we create a game object, we're actually setting up that components array. So really we just need to default the ID to a proper value. And that value is unused, right? And we'll do the same for our various components. Our various component arrays. And that should do it for basic world state initialization. So what that allows us to do now is, instead of looping from 1, which just doesn't, it just goes against years and years of ingrained you start at 0. We can adjust these various loops that start at 1 to actually start at 0. I think it's that one, and then maybe it's just over here in the render. So the other thing that we need to change is, since now object ID is a valid, object ID 0 is a valid number, we need to change this to greater than or equal to 0. We could just do, I guess we can compare directly to not unused, right? That probably makes more sense. So our loop becomes, let's move this over, if this object has a visibility component, it's not unused, then go ahead and grab the position component. Yeah. So let's just make sure that we update all of our tests, or our logic tests. Don't see any. This stuff looks okay. Let's go through the statement code a bit closer. So let's go, set to unused. Here we are setting this. So now when we're adding, here we're going to do insert against unused. That's okay, and then when we destroy an object, instead of setting things to 0, we want to set it to unused. And similar, set the object ID to unused. So I think that might be everything. Let's give that a try. Hey Gun Games, welcome back. Yeah, good to see you. After reading about the Balmer Peak, I've decided to get some beer tonight and write some code. The Balmer Peak. I'm unfamiliar with that term. Is that have to do with Steve Ballmer, or is that something completely different? Alright, let's see what this looks. Oh, and we've crashed, so that means that we missed something somewhere. Let's see if we can figure it out before throw things into a debugger. Set these to unused. Oh, you know what? If I'm defining these as unsigned 32-bit integers, it would be a really bad idea to try and assign it -1. Alright. Well, that's great. Let's define another value, and for now we can make it basically any value that's outside of the range from 0 to 999. So perhaps we define perhaps we just define it to the same value as max. Go. Has to do with Steve Ballmer. Ballmer peak has to do with a peak in programming ability while drinking alcohol. Oh. Whenever I think of Steve Ballmer, the thing that jumps immediately into my head is him dancing around like a crazy person, screaming developers, which he did at some internal Microsoft meeting, and they got it on tape, and he's sweaty and just super intense. Google Ballmer peak. I will definitely check that out. And if you haven't seen it, then you should really Google the term developers, and watch the video. It's scary and amusing at the same time. All right, so let's see. Let's just set this, I guess, to 1,000 at this point. He's definitely a character. That is, yes, he is a hype machine. And I think he's actually, now he owns an NBA team, which I think is actually, I think it's a good thing. I think he seems passionate about it, and so I think it's probably good for the team. Alright, so we're going to set our unused value to 1,000, which is the same as our max go, so it's not something that will be a valid index in the array. Let's see, that doesn't do the trick. Nope, does not do the trick. Alright, let's try one more. That was definitely a problem though. Imbibing alcohol improves cognitive ability to a point. Optimal programming 2 beers in. Interesting. It actually improves cognitive. Did they do any sort of study like that with coffee? Or is that just universally accepted that you need coffee to program? Ah, I missed one. Alright, I missed a... yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they would have done studies on that, but I guess they do studies on pretty much anything you can think of. I wonder if that was, those studies were sponsored by beer company. State net. Alright, so I think I just, perhaps maybe it was just that loop that I missed. There was some tests. If it bombs now, I'm gonna throw it into the debugger and get some help. Okay, so it's still crashing. You guys seeing that? Let me... Why is that window so big? Let's... Let me throw this into the debugger. And I will put the debugger up on the screen. More than 2 beers in though. Wasting your time? I don't know. You can further the studies. Okay, so here's where we're failing. Let me put this up on screen. And actually put it up where you can see it. See that? I don't know. I can't get my Visual Studio up on the screen. Let's see. Oh, it's hiding. Okay, there it is. The game window is hiding it. Okay, so you can see it's failing the assert right here, so my game object is not being created, and I can see exactly why. I don't even need the debugger anymore. I missed a rather important test. So right here, I'm looking for an unused object to use for my newly created object, and I'm not testing against my new unused value, so I'll never find one. I fall through this loop, and go is never set to a valid object, and so we assert right here. I should do a show some night where I try it out and let the audience form an opinion. That might be a good show bit. I will take that under consideration. Does it have to be beer? Okay. Let's throw my terminal back up here. And we're back in business, so we should have our test our bounds. Still works. Test it. We can't go through walls. Okay, so that still works. Hooray. And that, ladies and gentlemen, shows the exact reason why assert is your friend. So it can, we were assuming that this statement was going to be true, and the game would be in a bad state if it turns out not to be true. So that's a good place to put an assert, so that if you ever make a stupid mistake like I did, catch yourself fairly shortly after you make it. All right, so tick that off the to-do list. Smarter world in it. And then any frosty adult beverage. Okay, that sounds reasonable. So the next thing that I'm going to work on is just a bit of cleanup on my naming conventions. I'm still a bit all over the place with the naming conventions, so I'd like to be more C-like. So what I'm going to do is essentially, instead of calling this game object create game object, I'm going to have game object and then the function that I'm performing. And likewise, instead of add component to game object, we'll call it game object. Since these are related, they're all part of the game object management subsystem, it helps to have the function names start with the same prefix, if you will. Doing more work on your top-down shooter, add an inventory system. That's cool. Yeah. Is that a UI component as well, or are you just building out the kind of behind-the-scenes handling of the inventory, and then UI is next? Just flushed out the code beneath it. Yep. You gotta start with a good foundation before you can make it pretty. Get component. Alright, I think that that's not what I want. Let's see, how do I do Control H? That's what I want. Yeah, getting so far along into a project and realizing you messed up on the core foundation. Yeah, it's I definitely feel the same way. But do what you can. Fire an entire refactor. Yeah. I think that's. I think that that's something that is kind of acquired through experience as well, because I think I've done that enough in the past, or maybe not. Not on the order of magnitude of an entire system rewrite, but certainly like going back to the drawing board on a subsystem. You just kind of gain experience, and the best way to learn is to make mistakes like that, because you won't make the same mistake twice. Do I write code for a living? Yes, I do. I write, I do mobile coding now, so iOS and Android when I have to. Although I prefer iOS very much more so than Android. Component. Objective-C, yes. I did Objective-C for a lot of years, and now I do most of the coding in Swift. Dipping into Objective-C to integrate certain libraries that might still use it, but I'm a fan of Swift now. I've been working in it for about a year and a half. I like a lot of the language features. Compiler will tell me if I've missed anything, which is nice. Let's just see. I think that may be everything. Lose the enjoyment and passion. It's definitely it's interesting that you say that, because that's part of the reason that I am working on this roguelike and doing the streaming, is because it's kind of a refreshing change from my daily job. It's still coding, but it's different enough that I still have the passion for the coding. Alright, let's just build this real quick and see if I missed anything. Apparently I did not. So let's run it. And we're still working. Yay, okay. Good. Alright, so there's a little super quick renaming. Grouping those functions a little bit more closely by name. everything you've coded has been your ideas, how you want. Yeah, that's another. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of my own mobile apps as well, and so that's definitely a good outlet where you can work in your day job and build what somebody else wants you to build, and then go home at night and build what you want to build, be it an app or a game or whatever. I'm just going to remove all of my Swift-like camel case in favor of the C idioms. I like my variable camel case though, we'll keep that. Can move, and then we'll just change this last one to other. So this gives us a little bit more of a naming consistency. We can see that library functions all start with a prefix and are capitalized, or capital letter at the start of each word. We can follow through that with our PT console, and then everything that is part of our game code is going to be lowercase separated by underscores, with our types capitalized. I think that's fine. Alright. So the next step is, it's a big one, so we'll probably just start it tonight, but we're going to start working on our dungeon level generator. And I wrote some notes again, just like yesterday when I was kind of trying to put together the ECS. I have just jotting down some pseudocode in my notebook, trying to define some structures that I might want. So let me keep this. I guess for now we'll put it, is it worth breaking it out into a new file? I think for now it will just keep it same file. Alright, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define some constants. So our map width is going to be the same width as the number of columns that we have in our game. Our map will take the entire width of the window. However, it's not going to take up the entire height, because we want to leave some space at the bottom to do some display of messages, and then we'll also have an area of the screen dedicated to player stats, current health, that sort of thing. Attack and defense strength. So I think we're going to put, our screen is 45 rows high. We're going to say that the map is 40 those rows. So we'll leave 5 rows to other information. All right, and then, so at a high level, the algorithm is basically I'm going to create a grid of cells and mark all of those cells as filled in. And what we're going to do is have some loops where we generate rooms of random size with random coordinates, and we're going to position those rooms, and then when we find a spot for a valid spot for a room that's not like overlapping another one, we will carve out that room and mark the cells that make up that room as unfilled. And we'll loop through some number of iterations of that, and then when we have the rooms kind of situated so that they fill a good portion of the map, we will draw corridors between those rooms so that it's possible that for the player to make their way throughout the entire map of the level. And at a high level, so this initial implementation, the rooms will be rectangles or quadrilaterals with one cell wide corridors that are either moving vertical or horizontally between them. So very simple. Once we get the map function or the dungeon level generator function working, we can always make it more fancy later on. So first thing we're going to do is we are just going to have, I guess we could just do we could just use bools, I suppose. So what we're going to want is we're going to define an array of map cells, and we want it to be, it'll be a two-dimensional array, so it'll be width by map height. What is this? Let's change the music up a little bit. That's getting a little too. Alright, so first thing we want to do is we want to, let's see. I guess we could do this inversely. We could just call it used and unused. But it's fine. Mark them all as filled. Oh, that reminds me, gun games. I know you went to get some food yesterday, but did you see how I used the braces inside my Switch? We actually ran into a good reason why those are not only a good idea, but necessary. So what we'll do is we're going to mark all of the is filled. And then so we're going to generate some rooms. And to do that, I'm going to bring in I think quick, see what this is part of. Some random numbers, so we're going to use they're all in standard lib. Okay, so we're going to use rand and srand, and those are all declared in the standard library. So we want standard lib. We also want that to be, so it doesn't matter terribly much, but okay, so standard lib, and then as part of our initialization, our game initialization, we need to seed the random number generator, or the pseudo random number generator. Which I guess we can just do. And look, there's a, so you give it an unsigned variable that's, or an unsigned integer to seed the random number generator. And so most times you use another standard lib function that returns the time. So we'll do something like this. That says, give me the current system time as an unsigned int, and use that as our seed for the random number generator. And so then we should be able to use the rand function to generate pseudo-random numbers. Again, rand, it's a reasonable random number generator algorithm. It is not truly random for the mathematical term of randomness, but for the purposes of what we're doing, it's good enough. Alright, so I'm going to kind of just do this as a loop. Let's just start it as a while loop. Kind of like we have our game loop. And then I think our test is going to have, my initial thought was to have when some percentage of the available map space is filled, that would be our exit condition. So I don't know if that's going to work in practice, but we'll give it a try. So we're going to define a cells used, and that will start at 0. And then our exit condition will be if cells used also do so if that percentage is greater than, what percentage are we gonna, I guess we can play with this and see what the maps look like. So let's just say for now it's greater than 65% available cells, because we're just talking about the rooms, the cells for the rooms at this point, not the corridor cells as well. And what we're going to need to do is make this be floating point math, because otherwise it's going to round or truncate. So I'm going to just say, I guess we can just cast it. Let's move this over here. Go down to Beagles. So in that case, that's our exit position, or exit condition. So we'll set rooms done to true, and then we'll fall out of the while loop. So then what we'll do, let's just kind of so we'll carve out non-overlapping rooms. Randomly placed and of size. And then what we will do, once we have our rooms in position, what we'll do is we will do join rooms with corridors. all rooms reachable. So that reminds me, the other thing we're going to need to define here is a collection of rooms. So what we're going to want, I think I defined do I have a rectangle? Alright, I have a PT rect that I can use for a rectangle. May not be I'm trying to think. Would it be more efficient to have XY with height or XY and then X2, Y2? Represent the coordinates of the bottom. I think with height is probably fine. So we're going to define a rooms array. For now, let's just give it an arbitrary value. So on a level, that would be crazy. Because we're also, when we generate our rooms, they're not going to be entirely randomly sized. They're going to be randomly sized within a given set of bounds. Alright, so while we're in our looping while loop, the first thing we're going to want to do is generate random top left for a new room. So that will be our X, Y, that'll be random number. So between 0 and our map width, right? So that'll give us X. Similarly for Y. Between. Oh, okay, so it doesn't actually. We should define a maximum size. Maybe it's better to generate the width and height first and then the placement, because I don't want to generate like an X and Y top left coordinate that's like all the way over to one edge, and so you can't have a proper sized room. you've kind of failed before you've even started. So let's do... So we can keep this, but we'll change that a bit. What we want is a random width and height. So, and again within bounds. So I think we can figure out what our max. This could be something that's just part of the function itself. How big do we want our room to be? I would say we want a room to be at least 3 cells wide and at least 3 cells tall. Because otherwise it just looks like a hallway. But how big do we want this to be? If we're talking about an area that's 80 by 40 and we want a decent number of rooms, I'm going to say that we probably don't want rooms that are bigger than 15, 20? I guess, I mean, we're just going to have to play with these numbers. We'll generate some maps and see what they look like, and we can tweak the numbers. So let's just start off and say if we want max room size of 20 and a min room size of 3, we're going to do mod 17 and we're going to plus. So this should give us a range of values between 3 and 20. And the same. So once we've got a width and a height, we then can restrict our X and Y randomness to incorporate the width and height that we've just generated. Am I really quiet? Sorry about that. Is that better? Hey, Mr. Love Pickle. How's it going? Good to see you again. Hopefully my mic levels are better now. They look okay to me. Alright. So to clamp X between... We basically want to subtract the width that we just generated from map width so that we don't put it over so far. In fact, we may want to give it a... Is our room... Yeah, our room width is the open space, so it doesn't count the walls. So we're going to want at least one column of buffer. So we're going to make this width -1. So if our, let's say our random width is 10, then our X will fall between 0 and map width -11, which would be 69. So if we generated that in the 69 slot, it would go to 79 and we'd still have the 80th column. Yeah, that should work. And same for height. Alright, so if we've generated a random room, the next thing that we're going to want to do is see if we can, we want to position it so that it's not overlapping any other room that we've already generated. So I think we'll probably write a function for this because we're going to be doing this a lot. So basically we want to see if the room that we just generated overlaps anything. And what's the best way to do this? We can look at our map cells, and if any cell within our rectangle here is unfilled, then we know that we have an overlap. So essentially, we want to go from X to X plus W, and from Y to, and then examine the cells here. I guess for now we'll just call it if rect is unused, and we will give it our X, our Y, our width, and our height. And if we fail that condition, we'll just toss the entire room out that we generated, and continue on with this test, which we should fail, and then go back up to the top and generate a new random room. I feel like I've heard this song about 5 times already, so let's try something else. Okay. Let's define this. Keeping our naming conventions so that our map functions are all kind of starting with the word map. This is a bool. These are 8-bit integers, X. Width and height. However, this is defined as a global right now. I don't know that I like that. So let's bring that inside the generate function, but as that also means that we'll need to pass it around. Which could be passed. That's a fairly large. Not thrilled about this for the moment, but it'll work. I think having this at the global scope is better than passing it around by copy. Even though it's bools, it's there. You know, width times height. That's a lot of cells. We could pass it by reference, but let's just leave it like this for now. So the test that we want to do is determine if all cells within the given rectangle are unused. I guess we're calling it filled. So we're going to loop from X, and we're going to loop until I is, if the width is we're going to want to loop until X plus W. And then we've got the inner loop as well. Y. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the value in map cells at those coordinates. If map cells ij is false, then that means that that particular cell is being used by a room, and so that is our failure condition. So we're going to return false. And then our success condition is if we go through the entire we go through all of the cells used by this rectangle and we fall out of the loop, that's success. That means we didn't find any cells that were in use. And so the success case, if we do find that the rectangle that we want to use is currently unused, we're going to mark those cells. We'll call it map use. And we'll send the same four parameters, X, Y. Now we could you know what, we could combine this and we could just say carve room, map carve out room if it fits. And fail without doing any work if we can't find a suitable fit. That's much more efficient. I like that. So what do we want to call this? Alright, so this becomes map carve room, and first of all, it's a void. We're not going to return anything. Do we want, you know what, we do want to return something. Because if we've created the room, I think we want to keep track of the rooms that we've created. So in the case of success, we will return we'll return success or failure. Let's keep that condition bool. So if we fall out, if we find a used cell within our room rect, we'll fail, return false. Otherwise, before we return true, carve out the room. And we're going to borrow this same exact loop, set of loops. But instead of testing for usage, we are going to mark it as used. So we'll set the ij cell equal to false, marking it as used, and we're going to return true in this case. Call it success. And if we have success at carving out a room at that spot, I guess we can just do if success. We'll spin up a. I guess we can just grab the next one. I believe it's X, Y with height. X, y. Let's just double check. X, Y with height. Okay. And we will add that to our So when we carve out the room, we'll define a rectangle with that, with the information. We'll add that rectangle to our collection of rooms. And we'll increment our room count. We also need to increment our cells used count because that's our exit condition. So in this case, we're adding cells used our width times our height. All right. So what I'd like to do let's comment this stuff out for now. What we'll have at the end of this map generate routine is a valid list of map cells. Or a list of cells that can then be turned into walls. So basically any cell in this two-dimensional array that is still marked true is something that we haven't carved out, so it's a wall. So what I would like to do is at least copy this for the moment and have a not sure the best place for this for the moment, but to basically have an add wall routine that will spin up game objects for a wall in a given spot. And what that'll do, game object wall, wall pause will be XY. And so what we're going to do we don't want to do this in our inside of our game loop. We want to do it right here. Let's just comment this out now. So instead of placing our player and one wall, let's generate a bunch of rooms and put the whole map on the screen. map generate. And once our map is generated, again, we can hide this behind the function in the future, but what we'll do, let's borrow this whole thing. We'll loop through our entire map, and we'll say if the cell at the XY position is true, that means that it is a wall. Okay, well, that is a lot of code that we just put together. I guess we could try and build it. Hope for the best. Oh yes, my player is commented out, so I'm using that for movement. Maybe I'll just keep the player around just to not have to comment out all that other stuff, because part of map generation will also be figuring out where to put the player in that room or in the map. Right now he may end up in the middle of a wall, but we'll fix that when we come to it. Map carve room redefinition on 196. Different basic types. Am I not sending the right types? Guess I should figure out what random I wonder if I should just go U32s for all of these. Because it says that random is guaranteed to have at least has a value, the rand max has a value of at least 32,767, which is 32-bit. No, it's not. But I have a feeling that these are not U8s, which would be a max value of 256. So let's make those U32s, and then these become, these are fine to be weights. Carve room, different basic types. I'm assigning that to a Boolean, and I'm returning a Boolean here. Check that out. see if I can get some clarification on that error message. Yes, that is the problem. So I am using the function up here, and I haven't defined that function or even declared it until after the fact. So the compiler doesn't know what this function looks like. And so it assumes that the return type of any function, just by default, its assumption is that it's an int, which is why it wrapped in your own, hey, that's cool, gun games, no worries. Go for it. I will be wrapping up very shortly because my brain is tired. So I'm gonna drop a definition. I don't know where map generate will be used, so I'm gonna be safe and move it up near the top. ADM244, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Glad you're joining us. Alright, so we're going to declare it up here. Our carve room. Alright, and we built. Dare we run? I only live once, right? Well, this is odd. Oh, no, we're crashing. Okay. It seems like we're... looping infinitely. It just went off into Never Never Land. So I'll give it a quick once over, but if it's not immediately obvious to me, I think I'm gonna probably pack it in for the night and come look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow. Map generate, okay. So we're setting rooms done to false. We're declaring our rooms list and some cells used and room count, initializing those to 0. And we're going to loop until rooms done is true. So we're generating random width height. Trying to carve out a room. If that is successful, we're going to add a room rect to our rooms list, increment our room count, and then increment our cells used. I think this one we're going to have to hit break everything you've worked on. Yes, definitely create a backup, that's why source control is your friend. I think I'm going to have to throw this in a debugger to see where I'm going on. This is false, return false. Otherwise carve them out and return true. Seems reasonable. see. We can load up Visual Studio. And put a couple of breakpoints together. Okay, I'm going to set a couple breakpoints. Why? There you go. So I've set a couple breakpoints inside of my map generate. So basically I need to launch this and attach while it's still infinitely looping. So let's do that. Hopefully it'll hit. So theoretically I've attached. Have I hit a breakpoint elsewhere? I don't have any breakpoints over here, I don't think. Nope. So my game view is not oh, am I stuck in here? I'm not even hitting these guys. Am I stuck inside carved room? Let's set some breakpoints in here. Where'd you go? Okay. Oh, you know what? Look at what I've got right here. That's not an I, or that's not a J, that's an I. I've got a bad loop. Let's clean that up. So for I is X between X and 0, and then this is a J. J, not I. J. build and run. Let's see what we got. Nope, we're still in the weeds a bit. Did I copy that loop somewhere else? Yeah, I did. Copy pasta. Nailed you. Yeah, thank you, ADM244. Yep. You gotta be careful with the copy paste. Alright, I think that should be... Alright, let's build and run. Nope, we failed right away this time though, so it's not an infinite loop, it's a different problem. And I'm gonna throw this into the debugger right away. So let me show you. It threw me here. Let's check the call stack. Game object create. Oh, you know what? Did we already hit our... You like the music? Is it Gen Zoom? Yeah, this is if you like the music itself from Monster Cat, which is it's a label that has pretty cool licensing rules. I basically got what's called a whitelist license that lets me play their catalog while streaming, and it's you know, I don't have a commercial stream right now, but if I ever do have a commercial stream, then it's royalty. I don't have to pay them additional royalties. Plus, yeah, it's pretty good music. Alright, so it's my object create. Oh, look at that. I fell out of my loop. I wonder if I am already out of game objects. Because I only set it to 1,000, and I bet I ran out of objects. And if we're in game object create, that means we got all the way back to our wall creation. Oh, sweet. So that's encouraging. We got farther. I can see what... Let me check the 999th slot and see if that object is in use. Right, game objects? Yep. Let's see if that slot is in use. And it is. Oh, awesome. So that's it. We just ran out of objects, which we knew we were going to do sooner or later, and it just happened a lot sooner. Let's stop debugging. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. Close that. Okay. What I want to do is hide that so that we can see the code for a bit. And let's up this to 10,000 for now. Perhaps put a note in this by this assert. Let's build it again with our bumped object capacity. Nope, we're still failing. Where is it putting us now? Game object add component. That's interesting. We've got an object ID. Oh, I broke this assertion. That's the problem. No, object ID not equal to... You know what, now I'm just tired. I think we're gonna call it real soon. So what I did... You know, I knew when I did this it was gonna come back to bite me. And it did. Really a lot sooner than I thought. So unused was redefined as our max go, and when we up this, this is now unused 1000. That's now a valid index in our game space. So I'm going to change this to 100,000, and it will come back to bite me. Oh hey, Gun Games. Yeah, I'm gonna take off in a minute. I just want to see if I want to get this map working. But I'm definitely nearly done for the night. Ah, look at that. We've got a map. Oh, and I'm not even... Let's see. Can you guys see the... Let's close Visual Studio out. Boom. There it is, in all its black and white glory. You know, right off the bat, I said that our exit condition Malmer Peak taking it too far. Yes, writing comments in the code for when you wake up and have no recollection. You know, it's not only for when you're coding inebriated, but also if you come back in a month, even if you're coding completely sober, you'll look at the code and be like, what was I thinking? So I always like to leave comments explaining code that is not you know, incredibly obvious as to what it's doing. So I've got my map. I'm happy with what it is right now. I definitely see room for improvement because I said that the threshold was about 65% space used, and this is, I mean, we can obviously up that threshold by quite a bit. The other thing that I would like to do is we've got a couple rooms here that butt up against each other, and that, well, I mean, maybe that's not too bad, but we may want to think about adding at least a single wall wide of space in between different rooms. But I am very satisfied with how things are shaping up right now. So I'm gonna, on that high note, I'm going to bid everyone good night for now. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in following along and getting notifications about our about the next stream, hit the follow button. If you want to check out some past streams, the archives are on YouTube. Questions or comments, hit me up on Twitter at PDCodes. And if you want to play around with the code yourself, tweak it, you can check out the source code on GitHub and play along at home. So take care, everyone. I will see you next stream, which will hopefully be tomorrow night around the same time. I'll try and stream several times a week. If not tomorrow night, then Wednesday for sure. But thanks for watching. Take care. Good night.